Little bud here. Just been spending the last about 10-15 minutes or so down here tweaking my nib all by myself. Worked up quite the sweat. So I thought maybe you'd like to have a look. Let me show you. There you go. The Montegrappa Elmo. Look at that beautiful color. So I got the pen. Love the looks of it, love the feel of it, but the nib disappointed me shortly after I inked it up and started using it. So it would hard start quite a bit, and it would dry out. All that you'd have it put the cap on, and I don't know, 20 minutes later, it'd take a little effort to get it going. So it worked good out of the shot, and then shortly after, it wasn't doing so hot. Focus. So I made sort of a video to you guys to mention to fix those pens that aren't quite working right, and so I thought I better get at it. So let me show you what I did and how much better it is now, and we'll take it from there. This will be a quick one. So the main problem, that was the tines. They're too tight. So when they come together, actually let's do a head-on view. So the tipping material, you got the blob at the end, then you got your little slit, right? And there needs to be just at least a little hairline gap so you can get ink through that, so it can flow. If it's too tight, if the tines are just ramming against each other, you'll have a heck of a time getting some flow going. And you shouldn't have to really press down hard to spread them, to splay the nibs a bit, to open them up. So there should be a nice little super fine gap, like 1/1000th of an inch to maximum 2/1000. So I'll show you what I did and how I checked it out, but you can see now it's very wet. Across the T might as well. It's not overly wet. I could get it more wet if I wanted to, but I don't. No, it solved the problem of the hard starting. It was just a little ink starvation going on. So it's very nice though, but good flow. Not too wet, not too dry. Kind of perfect, really. This is, I would say, perfect flow for a fine. And now I am super happy with the pen. Big time bonus. Nothing better than a pen that you love the looks of and the feel of and all that stuff. And then when you go to write with it, it's a nice nib and you're just very happy. That every pen should have that same story. So let me show you really quickly what I did. I didn't build up a sweat. And I don't think it even took 10 or 15. Usually I can get her done in about 2. So I just had to feel it up with these feeler gauges. So, you can adjust with your eye, so you can get a little loop and look at it and then try to spray the tines apart and then look again and make a guesstimate on how far apart the nib is. I mean, how far apart the tines are, the little spacing that you got. Is it, when you look at it, oh, is that too much? Or is that too little? Is that, not enough? Feeler gauges are great. Really great tool. If you worked on engines, you need these. But for a lot of stuff too. I used to do a lot of work with optics. We had to get proper spacing and stuff. So this is not a high-end set. This is the cheap Chinese pair that you get at the local automotive store. I don't know. Maybe it's $5, $6, $7 or something like that. Pretty darn cheap. Up here we call it Princess Auto. In the States, it's Harbor Freight. All from the same place. You can get really nice high-end ones. You can get brass ones as well. I used to do a lot of those for shims, for optics and things. You can cut the size you want, but this is good enough for what I got to do. Only goes down to 1/1000 1/2, so 1.5 thousandths. So that's a little thicker. I'd like to have one that's like a 1/2 thou and a thou, but this will work okay. So anyways, this is the main one I'm using. 0.0015 in an inch, so 1.5 thousandths of an inch, and the 2 thou. That's really all I need from here. These are steel. They are pretty flexible, so you shouldn't really do any damage to your nib. But brass might be even a little bit better for softness, but we're not doing anything crazy. So what I did, see if I can do this on the camera. All right. See that white balance going again. Just turned into a blue pen suddenly. Let's see if I can get to this. It's going to be a little tricky. Let's see what we can do. Focus helps. All right. So you go to the back of the slit here, and you should be able to slip this little feeler gauge in. Okay, and this is perfect. I'd say this is more now like a thousandth of an inch. I couldn't even do it. So I could, when I first started, I would go here, slide, and it would stop right about here, like really hard. You couldn't slide it through gently. So as they're just really squishing against each other, you should be able to just gently slide it through. So you put it in, you slide it back and forth, wiggle. It's a little tight. I would say it's closer to a thou. Actually, maybe like 1.25 thousandths is the true distance, that gap. And that's just learning that feel. If you worked in machine shops, especially running a conventional lathe or something like that, you know how to just tweak the dial, the gauge a little bit there, just to take off that whisper cut. So all I did is I started with a shim, and you could maybe do it with this one this thin. You might have to go a touch thicker, and you put it in. I have to zoom out now. You put it in. Okay, you force it through. In some cases you have to, if it's so tight, and then you just go side to side a little bit, very gently, side to side. You can kind of twist it this way a little bit if you need to, and then you start to just open the tines a little bit, and less is more. Just a little tweak, then check it and go, okay, a little tweak and check it. And if you go too far, that's okay. So now if you get the gap a little wider than you should have, you went a little bit heavy with the hands, I find the easiest way to do it is you push one up, one down, and you just bring them back over a little bit, just a little bit past center. Hold it for like a 5-6 count. Let go. They'll come back. You don't do this and then that. Then you're gonna gobbledygook them, but just pull them up from each other a little bit, just enough so you can cross. Hold it for like a 5-6 count. Let go. They come back, and then you put the feeler gauge in again. Check it and see, okay, that's still a little loose, and you just keep doing that a few times. So a little bit of patience. Once you get the hang of it, it's a couple of minutes. And then the tines are nice. So what you do have to look afterwards is, after doing this, spreading a little bit and maybe a little up and down action, they could be out of alignment, right? So that's where you need your loop, and you just bring them back and just tweak your nib. It's good times. And then you play with it and you get it set up. And then lo and behold, you have a lovely pen once again. Like, it's just super great, But that's all I did. So just a cheap little set of feeler gauges. And this thing now just sounds like Bob Ross. Little creatures. It writes real nice. It's not the best fine nib I've ever used, but it's pretty darn good now. I enjoy it. I might need to just smooth it a bit. It feels there's a little extra blob on one side. So over here, it comes down a little extra far. There's just even if you align it perfectly, it's still just the cut is off a smidge if you look in the loop. So I might smooth it a touch. But there you go. That's how I like to tweak my nib. Hope you learned something. And you know what? Hey, real quick, let's just do a nib comparison. Let's do a couple other nibs really quick. You can never miss the opportunity to do a little experiment and check some other nibs just as a sample, as a reference. There we go. So this is the Miami Dialogue 3. We start with 1.5 thou. I'll go up the slit here. Whoop. There we go. That, yeah, okay. Put it in very gently. And so I was just hitting the feed there before, so apologize for the focus. Come on. There we go. So you just put it in. And so it fits through there a little too easy. You should be able to feel it grabbing the feeler gauge, a little resistance on the side, and it's just like a hot dog down the hallway. So it needs to be a little bigger. So the 2 thou. Now I start to feel. This one actually might be almost 2.5 thou, I would say. It's still a little loosey-goosey. So I'd say it's probably more like 2.5 thou. And this is a very wet pen, so that makes sense. Here's the TWSBI. Let's check this one. Same process. Yeah. So you can see the daylight, right? There we go. So that, I would say it's between 1.5 thou and 1 thou. Somewhere around there. 1 thou might be a little bit too loose, but yeah, it's a little tighter than 1.5 thou. Faber-Castell, they have great nibs out of the box. This is a fine, yeah, I'd say 1.5 right there. And this is my Waterman. Now, it doesn't rate super smooth, but I do find it hard starts a little bit. So I'm going to check this a little bit more. I'm curious if this one is a touch too tight. Come on. There. Now it's in. Yeah, that could be opened a little bit. That's a little bit too tight, I would say. So that could be it. It just needs a tiny tweak. But there we go. Thought I would show you a quick sample of some other nibs so you understand. Somewhere between 1/1000, 1.5 to 2/1000 of an inch is a good little micro gap. You should be able to fit a shim through there just nicely so that way the ink is flowing. Hope that tip helped you out.